So today we are pleased to hear from Kathleen Roarke. And I should say, in the sort of history of local business networks, the Grand Rapids group has had really special significance. Interestingly, the first New York Times article about local business organizing featured Guy Bazzani, who is then one of the founders of the Grand Rapids organization. If you go back in your New York Times about almost 20 years now. But Kathleen is a more recent member and leader within the People's First Economy. She joined the organization in 2017 as a member coordinator, and now she is director of member engagement, which means that she's all about relationship building. And today she's going to talk about what she's doing, particularly around her Good for Michigan program. Kathleen, over to you.
So I'm happy to be here and thanks for having us. It's been a minute since I've done the whole slides on a Zoom call, so a little bit of grace. I just want to pull up some items to share with you. I always personally think a visual is helpful. So let me grab that really quickly. Okay, hopefully folks can all see this all right. So let me know if you can't. Okay, great. Yes, as Michael mentioned, People First Economy, we've had about a 20-year history. And in fact, a lot of that has gone back to Michael's work, and the original study is really showcasing the value of a circular economy, how businesses lead that movement and consumers can be a big supporter in continuing to make that a sustainable movement. So back in the day, our organization was called Local First West Michigan. We started solely with a Local First program. That was our emphasis underneath the organization at that time. And in 20 years, we've had some opportunities to expand and provide some additional benefit and value to the businesses who are leading the way here. So really what we do is all through the relationship of our businesses and those who are taking awesome creative risks for our community, so that it is a joyful place to be, a viable place to be, a really exciting and resilient place to be. So we're People First Economy these days. We rebranded, updated our name about 3 years ago and are continuing to live into that particular name and mission here as an organization. We really believe that the economy can thrive when people are put first. And we pursue that in 3 broad ways. So our Local First program, again, our start was there in our membership space. Over time, we've added in a sustainable business program, really as a complement to tell more stories and help people measure so that they can then go forth and make broader impacts. So they manage what they measure, right? So we start with a measurement program here underneath our sustainable business arm. And then our 3rd space now is civic engagement. So that's the impact project. And I want to dive in a little bit deeper to that today. We as an organization are 8 people large. We have 5 full-time staff here, 3 part-time staff working on these initiatives. And the other kind of preface I'll give, some of our work is statewide, some of our work is regional, and I can talk a little bit more about that as we go on. But this is our broad structure. So People First Economy organization hosts the Local First, Good for Michigan, and Impact Project programs. I won't go into too much depth with the Local First program. I think folks here are largely familiar with that. But we are proud partners with AMIBA, the American Independent Business Alliance, and so grateful to have that partnership connecting us into what's going on nationally and the other IBAs around the country. Again, I think folks are probably largely familiar with that, so I won't go into a ton of depth, but this is where I started with the organization. As Michael mentioned, I've been here coming up on 6 years now, and my very first foray into the organization was connecting directly with our member businesses. So the onboarding experience that folks know, making sure they're able to engage and take advantage of all the different member benefits available to them, and then really championing how we can get them out in front of consumers, whether that's via campaigns that are digital, events, or really those one-to-one connections, which are so valuable. Our 2nd program area, Good for Michigan. This is our sustainable business programming. So we work to provide resources so that businesses can continue to build better. And so again, this really for us is about being able to provide tools where folks can measure and then they can manage what they measure. So our goal is to really support businesses who are making positive impact by measuring those impacts so that they then can rally around how those engage with their employees, their local community, and the natural environment. The emphasis here for us is really to begin talking about the economy and the way that businesses either embody that in their organization or the way that they talk about it in their community as inclusive, resilient, and regenerative. So this is our Good for Michigan program, our sustainable business program. The third area for us is called the Impact Project. This is by far our newest initiative. It's been around now maybe for 2.5-ish years, so there's still much to learn in this space. But we recently started to dip our toes into more of civic engagement platform. And so opportunities for our businesses to get connected, particularly to local and statewide policy movement, and raise their voices. Our goal is to provide opportunities for businesses to use their voice so that organizations are not speaking on behalf of businesses, but really it's providing a platform for folks to get engaged. A couple of our early policy movements, as an example of what we've worked on already, Michigan a couple of years ago had a childcare bill that went through. As folks know, at that time, childcare, we'd lost so many people in the workforce. Many women were still at home with kiddos. And there is a huge shortage on opportunities for folks to get involved in childcare organizations or have places for their kiddos to be so that they can be an active part of the workforce. And so this bill was put forth so that there were opportunities to continue expanding and having state funds moving toward the expansion of our childcare industry. And we had businesses who were able to step forth to talk about why that would be a value to their businesses, how that would help expand and create flexibility for their workforce and bring on more talent here in our communities. Another that we worked on just this last cycle was Prop 2, which was about voter rights. And so this program allowed us to offer toolkits to our businesses so that their employees can get out to the polls. So our initiative behind this was really trying to figure out ways in which businesses could be creatively offering flexibility for folks to make it out to the polls during active voting times. So we're able to distribute that to our network here so that folks can continue to update their governance structures and make sure people had opportunities to lift their voice. So this is still definitely forming, but those are two opportunities that we've had over the last couple of years to really work through this program, bring a pilot group of businesses through it, and understand how they want to start engaging in this space. So I just want to touch on some of our brief history because I think while we're working on these three programmatic pieces, and us are really excited about the ways in which this starts from the micro capacity on the ground, the first program, one-on-one relationships with businesses and investing people and keeping their money here in our economy, all the way up to the policy movement, which is more of the macro space. It's taken us a great deal of time and a lot of relationship building in order to launch those programs, build the efficacy of those programs here in our community. And so I just wanted to share this kind of brief history and timeline of our organization. So as Michael mentioned, Guy Bazzani, he was one of our original business owners who rallied around this ideal of localism and wanted to get something uniquely on the ground here that talked about that. That happened back in 2003. We printed our first local first directory in 2008 and worked on some of the first impact measuring tools with an organization called eLab in 2013. That was the first time we were able to craft and create something in partnership that would help to measure impacts. For us, that solidified in a really specific place-based program measuring impacts in 2017. And now that program is statewide. So it's taken us some time to craft that piece, form it, and then be able to move that piece around to the state to connect with businesses doing some pretty amazing work. As we did that, we recognized that it became challenging to talk about the three bodies of work all underneath the previous name of our organization, Local First West Michigan. We certainly had expanded outside of that region by this time. And we saw that while we believe the sustainability movement is rooted in place, we wanted to have a broader way to start to talk about that. And so for us as an organization, we found a through line. We've been using this kind of tagline of local first means people first for a while, and felt that that was really a great way for us to segue and talk about our practices underneath these three programs more holistically. So our three programs really focus now on people in place, people in planet, people in policy. And so that's the through line. That's how we started to make that change back in 2020. And again, are still living into that language, that name, and building the movement in those three ways. So I'm hoping to deep dive more into our Good for Michigan program, as we certainly see this as a complement to our Local First program and the other movements that we have here on the ground in Michigan. Again, this is our sustainable business program. So we really work to connect and celebrate companies who are walking out their values, again, so that we can really start to talk about, build, and define an economy that's really inclusive, resilient, and regenerative. So what we work to do within this program is to help build collaborative impacts, collective impact reporting. Businesses receive individual reports around their impact and often are connected then to broader communities and can start to create some collaborative impact goals, either within their industry or within their region. We work with businesses who take those steps to map them up with resources that can help them build what their identified goals are. So after they've measured their impacts, they have an opportunity then to get connected to resources that can help to deepen those or institutionalize them, again, for their own business or maybe their region or their industry. And then we really seek to continue investing in the future of sustainability for Michigan. So we're working to build people together to create a broader movement and really help people understand the connection between Michigan's people, our natural resources, and how our community becomes and continues to be vibrant. Whenever we talk to any new stakeholders in this program, we like to start with defining sustainability. I'm sure that this is not a new term to anybody on this call, right? We all have a way that we define sustainability. Sustainability takes on different meaning in different contexts. So when we're talking to either businesses or partners or groups of folks together, we just like to take a moment to create some common language. So for us, when we're looking at sustainability, we're really creating this common language because we believe that sustainability is not solely financial sustainability. It's not solely environmental sustainability. It's really looking at all of the people that touch the different business and its practices. So we help to rally around this idea that it includes your stakeholders. It's those who buy from your business. It's those who your business employs. It's the community your business is planted in. It's the way that you build inclusive structures and governance for your workforce. It's the way that you talk to the community about your practice. It's how you build out a value chain. So that it can include all of these elements, social and environmental justice, wrapped up into a sustainability movement here. The Good for Michigan program is a part of some larger initiatives that help lend credibility to our body of work and direction for how we walk out this programming. So folks here likely might be familiar with B Corps. B Corps are certified in a pretty rigorous tool to provide some credibility to their sustainability initiatives and also benchmark them globally within their industry. And so we work with B Lab. We have a partnership with them and a license with them to utilize their tool. And then also support the B Corps here on the ground or those who might use that particular tool to measure their impacts. We also work with United Nations Global Compact and again hold a license for their tool as well, the Sustainable Development Goals. This is another tool that we utilize with businesses who are measuring their impacts, and they are one of the world's largest corporate sustainability initiatives. So we're really proud to be partners of theirs, to be bringing these tools that are global standards to our Michigan community and really helping to elevate how Michigan businesses are a part of this broader movement. On the ground, we're building several initiatives here. So these partnerships allow us to do a few things. For Michigan's Be Local, Be Locals are communities that have certified B Corps within them. There's usually one hub that brings and rallies all those folks together. So we work as an intermediary between B Lab, the certifying entity of B Corps, and Michigan's 30 B Corps. So we help to convene those folks. We raise awareness around what the bee economy is, businesses who participate in that. Likewise, we know that there are great businesses out there who are not there. They may actively not become B Corps. B Corp might not be the trajectory that they are on, but they are measuring their impacts and they are doing really, really great work and want to elevate what they're doing as well. These are the businesses that we call Good for Michigan. They're folks who have gone through the tools that we offer and are measuring their impacts. We really believe here, and I definitely want to give credit to my coworker and colleague Alice Jasper, who has helped to define and craft this programming, that it's not B Corp or bust. There is immense credibility and great transformational work happening through B Lab and B Corps that are involved in that platform. And also, it starts with asking, what is sustainability for me and my community? It starts with measuring your impacts. And so we certainly work with businesses who are anywhere along that pipeline. So not B Corp or bust here. We love our B Corps. We love our folks who are measuring their impacts as well. We call those Good for Michigan businesses. Through our Good for Michigan program, if the business has gone through and they've completed the SDG baseline, which is a subset of 30 questions, or 25% of the BIA, the impact assessment through BLAB, they'll receive any number of these amenities through the program. So we consult with businesses who go through so they can understand what their impact reporting means, how to make sense of that, how to stage goals for their business. We help them understand their performance. We guide them with resources. We provide educational and technical support to those businesses. We feature them in a number of ways. We believe storytelling alongside measuring impacts is paramount. And so we support folks in understanding how their tools with the performance report can also be mapped into the way that they talk about their business. Folks who go through the program are eligible for the Good for Michigan Awards, where we honor businesses in 4 different categories who are doing really great work here in the state. We provide them amenities like window clings and space on our People First Economy directory to be listed and searchable, as well as host a platform called Mighty Networks. Well, we use Mighty Networks to host a platform connecting those businesses together. Often what we learn or hear from many businesses in this program is that before going through the program or being connected to community, they felt like they were doing sustainability in a silo, or they felt like they were an island moving this work forward. And so creating community and connection around businesses who are moving in this is just, it's so important. It helps people begin to collaborate and know that they're not alone as they're moving this body of work forward. I briefly want to talk about the tools that we use as well. So we use 2 tools to help measure impacts. I mentioned them a couple of times, but I want to give them a little bit of time here. The Sustainable Development Goals are the 17 goals out of the United Nations Global Compact. Again, we ask people to go through a baseline. So there is a subset of 30 questions that businesses fill out. They pull from each of these 17 different goals that the UN Global Compact has identified, and they give people just a kind of a foundational place to start. After they go through the tool might recommend to them moving forward with one of these 17 goal areas or a few of these 17 goal areas. We can also work with partners who help convene businesses to identify the particular goal areas that might work for their joint goals. An example of this we've actually had recently, we're working with a CDFI partner who is rallying businesses together to help improve or identify and measure job quality. And so we've been able to pull out 3 of these, particularly these different goal areas, to put an emphasis around the workforce measurement piece. And so those businesses are able to go through, measure their workforce impacts together, talk about ways to build other initiatives that can improve job quality. And then we've been able to work with a partner that can secure some additional funding to move these businesses through some resources and to improve those processes. So just as an example. We also work with a B impact assessment. Again, this is the tool that comes directly out of BLAB. The SDG platform and the BIA platform have worked really intentionally to collaborate. So actually a number of the questions between the 2 overlap. So you might wind up using the SDG tool or the BIA tool and having completed questions from both subsets. But if businesses complete 25% of this, we consider them good for Michigan. Again, we can help them move through questions that are specific to a goal area that they would like to measure. So for that example of job quality, there's a workers category in the BIA, and we can help usher people through that to get a better sense of what their impacts are around their workforce. The BIA is specific in that it measures 5 different category areas. So the SDG goals, it had 17 different areas laid out. The B impact assessment, I just wanted to name, actually calls those by 5 different names: environment, community, governance, workforce, and customers. And our Good for Michigan awards are around 4 of these areas. So we award 4 businesses in Michigan that have measured their impacts. They're doing really great work in environment, community, governance, and workforce every year. And then I think I mentioned the storytelling piece is also a big piece of what we do here through the program. So we want to measure impacts, but then offer ways to make that actionable, not just with the resources to improve what folks are doing once they've either identified gaps or opportunities, but also to celebrate. I think what we find here when people go through these impact measurement tools is that they didn't know that they were either doing something particularly well in an area, maybe they're actually leading or they're over the global benchmark for a particular area. and we want to celebrate that. So every year we run a promo called May the 4th for Good Be With You, because we're nerds here, and we like to do that kind of thing. So we're able to talk about how businesses use their business as a force for good during a time when others are really utilizing that language, and encourage businesses during that time to go through. This is, for lack of a better term, within our Good for Michigan program, one of our renewal pushes, right? We're really encouraging people to be thinking about it around that time or renewing their impacts. So we ask businesses, if they've started this process, to go through the tools every 2 years to see how their impacts have changed. And also have our Good for Michigan program awards. So this is an example of an awardee from last year, Ordoc Brewing, who's actually out of the UP, who scored incredibly high in their environmental category, and we were able to honor them in a few different ways through our awards kind of ceremony, which in the past years we've done digitally for obvious reasons, but this year we're really excited to do in person. We also put out a big spread of the folks who have won every year in our largest business publication here in Michigan, MIBiz. And so this is an example of one of those spreads that came out, and the owners are able to talk about why this matters to them, and also give a little promo for what it is that they're doing that's so outstanding in this particular category. We also work to align this with what's happening directly here across the state. So in Michigan, our governor has released a plan called the My New Economy Plan. And it identifies a few different core areas that we'd like to see economic movement on here in our state. As an effort, again, through storytelling and to align the body of this programming, we've also put together a tool that showcases how our state's movement aligns with the tools that we're using. So if we're looking to boost the wealth of middle class families, how does that connect to the tools that we're using and the way that businesses can be a part of that process? So this is a tool that demonstrates that for us here in the state. It's something that we can utilize when we talk to partners. It's a way that we can also help understand what movement across the state looks like collectively. And then other storytelling pieces too. We are big fans of what's happening through the Shop Indie work at Amoeba. We host 4 regular campaigns here on the ground: Move Your Money, Independence Month or Indie Month, Nourish Our Community, and Gift Local, Gift Good, which is our holiday campaign. During this time, we also work really hard to align the SDGs and tools with these initiatives. It's another way for us to get these ideas in front of consumers, not only because it connects back to our Think Local First work, not only because it's a way that we can champion businesses, but we can also produce some content that really helps emphasize when people are keeping their dollars here or they're moving their money specifically toward localized banks and credit unions, etc., or championing the food economy, what SDGs they're contributing to positively here in our state. And so I have an example, I believe, of that. Yeah, Nourish Our Community is the active program that we have right now running. This is our Eat Local, our food-based programming. We tell stories of food-based businesses around the food cycle, from growth all the way to waste management. We partner with the Michigan Good Food Charter out of MSU Extension. This is an entity that has identified 6 goals for our state to move the food economy forward. So we work to align with that and showcase businesses who are actively working on those 6 goals. But I wanted to bring this to attention here because it has that through line for a Good for Michigan program, and that we are also using our SDGs to align these particular initiatives. So when we run our Nourish Our Community campaign, you can find on our landing pages and often in our social media how those align with the UN Global Compact's goal for zero hunger or climate action, etc. So this is another way for us to use a storytelling mechanism that pulls back into those measurable impact areas and encourages consumers to have more awareness of a larger movement. Okay, I think that is all from me. So apologies, hopefully that's a lot real fast, but I'm happy to answer questions and expand upon the pieces that felt particularly interesting.
Great. Thank you so much. That was terrific, Kathleen. Before I open up the floor to questions, and a lot of people have questions, and I'll just ask you to unmute and ask your questions. Some quick factoids about your network. How many members, how big the budget, and how many staff?
Yeah, so our organization, we have 5 full-time staff members, 3 part-time staff members, so we're 8 people large. In our Good for Michigan program, I believe we have about 115 businesses actively going through that, more over time, who have participated in that since its launch in 2013. In our Local First program right now, we are working with about 400 businesses there. That program particularly is West Michigan wide, so it covers largely Kent County and the counties touching Kent County here in the state. And then our budget, we usually work within, gosh, every cycle is different, right? Every year is a little bit different because we are membership funded, grant funded. We have some donor initiatives as well. We usually have about a $500,000 budget here in the county.
Okay, thank you. So, Tom, I see that you have about 30 questions that you've typed into the side there. Why don't you pick one or two for Kathleen to start with, and then we'll see if others have questions.
Yes, I'm happy to do that. Thank you. Kathleen, I guess the most important question that I feel I have is about the mechanisms that you are using to measure the impacts that are important. Can you describe any of those measurement methods or the particular items that you're measuring?
Yeah. Sorry, Tom, help me understand your question a bit. Are you hoping that I'll share more detail about what the tools measure or the particular outcomes, like what the impact reports are?
What the tools are measuring and how it is that you might know that the measurements are accurate.
Yeah. So the tools that we use are third-party, like verified tools. So they're created through B-Lab and the UN Global Compacts. What people put into them is self-identified. So to your question, we're relying on the business to put in quality information into that for us to understand. Those two entities, B-Lab and the UN Global Compact, offer licenses for us so that we can work on the back end. So we're able to look at the back end of someone's report and pull and aggregate data to help them understand their broader impacts. So for the example that I gave earlier, we have a group of businesses going through to measure their job quality impact. And so we've identified in the SDGs, 3 core SDGs for them to move through and to measure. We get that report from the back end. We help distill that information. We give each business an individualized report so they understand their own performance. And then we create a collective report for the 15 businesses that are going through that process. So they can also look at their region and say, collectively, we have this impact within our workforce or our job quality. So those are the bigger pieces. Is there anything else, Tom, that I missed in there? I feel like I'm losing my thread today. I could use some more coffee.
I'll hold on other questions till we see what other people want to ask.
Well, while we're on the B Corp piece, there's 2 things I'd love to get your reflections on. One is the entire B Corp assessment underwent a radical revision. And I'm curious what you think of that. And I have to say, so for my business classes, I have students do the B Corp assessment for a company of their choosing. And I have to say that I've been kind of consistently disappointed with the relatively low weight that they put on local ownership and other forms of local self-reliance. And so I'm curious how you reflect on that and integrate that into your metrics.
Yeah, that's a great question. So for folks, for context, for folks, the tool that the B-Lab team uses, the B Impact Assessment, recently they've gone through some updates. The B-Lab team's identified 3 core pillars of ways that they want to move forward as an organization and a joint movement. So this is a tool that's utilized globally. So when they update the tool, they need to make that tool available to all of their global stakeholders. They have 3 large goals. Gosh, Michael, putting me on the spot, I'm trying to remember what those 3 are. There's racial equity, stakeholders, and then their other is environmental and climate justice, I believe. And so as they've updated this tool, what B-Lab used to do is that folks would go through and they needed to cumulatively add up to 80 points out of 300, I think. And those 80 points is a pretty rigorous tool. It can be difficult to get up to that stage, but that meant that it could be weighted in any particular way. So you could, in theory, I don't think this is true for everyone, but you could, in theory, get all of your points in environment and none of your points anywhere else. And those 80 points would allow you to become a B Corp. As they're updating now, the goal from B-Lab is to weight those a little bit more relatively, right? So that in theory, you're thinking about sustainability holistically. So if you get your all 80 points, again, I don't think that's the case, so grain of salt there. If you get all your 80 points in environment, they're also looking to see where do you stack in these other areas. So they're doing much more of a weighted measurement of that now. So they're really looking at how they can utilize the tool to encourage movement in all 5 category areas, as opposed to just one. So I think to your point, Michael, and I, on our team, I'm not the one who's most in the weeds with the tool, so I don't know if I can fully unpack that from my perspective, but it seems to me that there is an effort from the lab to really be thinking about how some of that is weighted more. So the community aspect and the workforce aspect, I think, largely hold most of the place-based organizing within the lab's tool. And so I do think that they're working on ways in which those can be weighted a little more equally with some of the other categories, some of the other areas that people traditionally have the largest impacts in. So to me, that seems encouraging. I also think for many businesses, there's a different light bulb moment where now they're measuring differently. They need to be prepared to move through the tool in a different way. And so B-Lab, I believe, is offering a little bit of buffer in that. So people who are recertifying right now can choose which track, the way it's previously been weighted or how it will be weighted in the future, so that they can move forward with success. B-Lab is not looking to lose anybody in this process. They're really hoping that people can be prepared to move through their new kind of theory of change with those 3 pillars. So I hope that helps to answer that. Again, I'm not the, I feel like I'm plugged into this, but also there are a few others. Particularly, I want to call Alice Jasper on our team, who just recently completed B-Lab certification. They launched a new certification platform. Only 20 people across the country have gone through that. Alice Jasper from our team is one of those, and she's the only one in Michigan who has that certification here. And so I think she'd be largely better able to answer that, but that's my perspective on the tool.
Great. Okay. I see that Tom still has a bunch of questions, but does anyone else have questions? And we'll come back to Tom if you do. No. All right. So Tom, let's go into the policy domain. You had a bunch of interesting policy questions.
Yeah, thanks. One is the extent to which People First Economy is already integrating itself or interfacing with the Federal Justice 40 initiative and their criteria, and the state of Michigan has a similar environmental justice initiative.
To my knowledge, I'm not as familiar with either of those. I'd love to become more familiar with those. If I can pass them along to our team, it'd be great to learn more. This is really a much newer program for us. So where we've started is 2 years ago. We have had about 10 pilot businesses go through and start to lift their voice. We recently just were in Lansing over this last week working on a paid prescription bill. We had some business owners who wanted to raise their voice around that. So we brought over a business, Detroit Young Village, that came and spoke about that initiative. So again, I'm kind of moving around your question, Tom, I know, but I'm not super familiar with that. I'd love to become more familiar with that. And just acknowledge that our stage of growth for this is pretty early. I'll just add a little bit of context here while I'm still talking. Within this piece, I think the way that we've been able to move businesses through the pipeline and continue some thread of credibility as we start this kind of new body of work underneath our organization is that we are often connecting with our businesses, both in Local First and Good for Michigan, but primarily in our Good for Michigan program, who are measuring their impacts and are concerned about the larger, broader movement. And so we get in front of those businesses who are currently measuring their impacts, talk about their opportunities to either pull out threads that are really important to them or move on current bills and practices. And this is how people are beginning to get into the pipeline for our impact project program. So just a little bit of context. Again, I know it's a rounded question, but I'm not as familiar. And if you have information to pass along, we'd be happy to learn more.
And I would like to follow up on Tom's questions with respect to local investing. So, you know, a lot of local business networks have begun or have spent years in a shift from local purchasing exclusively to also focusing on local investing. And you happen to be in a state that has been a pioneer in this. So the Mile Act that Tom refers to in his comment on the side was one of the first state crowdfunding laws, and now the state is on the precipice of passing a 50% tax credit for people who do local investment. So I guess the question is, how do you engage with that, and where do you see, local investment related programs going?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think there are a couple of things that we have piloted this year that have been a really excitement foray into that movement. Within our Good for Michigan programs, one of the pieces of programming that I didn't particularly go into, businesses can access our tools through the Good for Michigan program individually, and or they can go through more as a collective. So often how that will work for us is that we have a partner that's connecting with businesses on the ground. Say in Marquette, one of our active partners there is Northern Michigan University and Northern Initiatives, who is a CDFI funder. And both of those partners have come together to help us identify businesses interested in measuring their impacts. And they will go through then collectively, either because they're connected in a region, they can help define that, or by industry. We have had, like a food-based industry program before, or people might get together because they're all in Marquette and they want to make movement here within Marquette. Well, to get back to your question, Michael, the CDFI funder has been a really big piece for us. As they're working on some of their processes to shift and change what impact investing might look like, they're also including what some of those business sustainable impacts are. And so opportunities to get them in front of these tools to make shifts in how they're measuring, sharing their story, and creating more impact through their business has allowed that to interact with the ways in which CDFI providers can give loans or can give opportunities out to some of these businesses. As well as offer other opportunities for them to apply to larger grants like Aspen Institute and other folks who can help provide and move capital through these programs. Those partners have been really helpful for us, not only to help businesses map their impacts, rally them around in a collective kind of cohort experience, but then also to map those impacts back up to trusted funding opportunities. Michigan's also recently had a lot moving through the SSBI programs. People First Economy is eager to get in front of some of those opportunities and again be a trusted supporter in moving business connections in front of unique and different loan opportunities like CDFIs, particularly in Michigan. CDFIs, a lot of movement from federal to state, and then state MEDC is providing a lot of opportunities and others to again provide technical assistance and trust building, relationship building with CDFI funders. So that's the kind of body of work that we're also quite interested in. We do find that particularly these funds, again, people need to build trust alongside them as they are different than the traditional bankable funding opportunities, but often help a lot of our minority owners and others get in front of opportunities to scale their business. So some of the programs happening here on the ground right now encourage businesses eager to get or adjust their models to be more employee owned or worker owned. And so there's a lot of funding moving through the state to help get people in front of that kind of impact investing if they're looking at ways in which they can help grow the wealth and power of their team and staff and create succession planning for those businesses on our state. So again, that might be working around your question, but those are some of the things that we've been involved in.
Yeah, no, that's very helpful. Let me ask about another kind of elephant in the room right now in Michigan, which is you are at the center of a gigantic strike. And I am guessing that the business members you have may be a little bit conflicted about it, because on the one hand, they probably have lots of labor sympathy. On the other hand, strikes and disruptions to the economy are bad for small business. So how does this affect you? How do the conversations proceed on this?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think there is a lot of duplicity to it, exactly like you're mentioning. I think on one hand, it offers a lot of opportunity for our businesses to really think through how they're structured, opportunity to shift so that it is more flexible for folks. And on the other hand, yeah, it does create challenge right now. I think the biggest piece is folks on the ground learning to have more flexibility with humans behind our businesses, right? That our businesses are run by people and they need flexibility as they're adapting to what these new demands are. So we're hearing a lot of feedback around that. We're also working with, or have worked over time, with some entities on the ground to work with workforce development pipelines. So we have a couple of organizations here that are helping to build some of those out. And we're able, especially we feel, to connect some of our businesses that have gone through their impact measuring platforms to those entities, because we feel like they're trusted organizations to partner with in that way. So we can help provide platforms for people to work in environments where they're already measuring what their culture might look like or how they are operating as a business, so that as they plug in, they can know and trust that these businesses are working toward the betterment of their workforce. So it's kind of pulls up in a lot of different ways. It's very individualized to businesses, but overall, I think it's just learning to adjust to an emergent economy, right? This is a real change. These are real significant demands, and there's a lot of opportunity for folks to adjust to those.
I mean, I think it's a complicated question, because one issue in the B Corp assessment is there is duck eggs on labor organizing and unions. So the whole B Corp assessment and the SDG assessment basically says, well, we can support labor in other ways besides their organizing. But I don't think you can dodge the question right now in Michigan, given, just the centerpiece of this strike right now.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I'm not sure entirely what more to add to that, because I think it's an active building movement now. People are looking at, well, so one interesting thing, this is a bit of a segue, a bit of a tangent, but aligned with the worker piece. I think one interesting conversation that we had with some owners here on the ground who are very, very small, right, like 1 to 3 staff members, but I've been really struggling keeping folks on the ground. They were starting to work with other businesses locally to think about what packages, benefits, incentives that they could do collectively that would add value to their staff members' lives and livelihoods. And so it's really, really interesting to see how people have been doing that more as a cooperative, where they might not have been able to financially manage all of that individually, but if they're able to collectively organize as the business themselves to be able to provide some benefits and amenities to their staff members, they've been able to do that in really unique ways. So that's been kind of fun to see come out of all of this movement. But I think too, I'll just point back to the impact measurement platforms. I think when people are measuring what they're doing, and they can actively manage what they're doing moving forward. So if they're able to identify gaps that they have, as there's been this labor shortage, as people have had significant issues around organizing, then they're able to start to move on some tangible data, and to start to implement things that can make better change or can create positive change for their employees. Again, I'm not here on our team, the localized expert in that particular area, so I hope those are addressing a couple of key points. But yeah, we are eager to see how it continues to move through our state.
Well, I think these are issues that, all networks struggle with, but they don't have the elephant of a national strike in their backyard that sort of forces them to shine a spotlight on it. Tom, you had a few other policy questions. Why don't we get to those?
Yes, I'm working on it here. Thank you. One thing that I noticed in your slides, Kathleen, was I think you had a box that was labeled "Move My Money." Did I get that right?
Yeah.
And is that "Move My Money" something for outside people to be able to invest, or is it for the companies themselves to move more of their money?
Yeah, great question. So the Move Your Money campaign is actually a campaign that many IBAs work on across the country. We learned a lot from Local First Arizona in this. We feel like it's really a two-pronged piece. We're centering our community-based banks. We're also talking about B Corp banks in this process and credit unions. And we're talking to both businesses and consumers. So what is the benefit of knowing and building a relationship with your bank or credit union? We found that was a significant gap here in Michigan. Many of our member businesses expressed concern during the pandemic. They were unable to connect out to a specific relationship or a staff person when they were trying to negotiate and find ways to bring more funds into their business or find more loan opportunities. And so that was an opportunity for us to jump into this movement already happening underneath the NEBA and with many other IBAs to talk about bringing this to our community. And so we've started to build some relationships more in depth with our banks and credit unions on the ground, and to start to pull out contacts, business development folks that can connect with our businesses, and then to start more of an educational process with consumers to think again, how does your banking lend to your circular economy habits, right? Do you even think about a bank as a business? Because it is, and what do they do with the funds that you provide them? And can those be more localized? And so that's been our initiative there. Again, kind of two-pronged. How do we get that to businesses so that they can localize if that fits with what they're doing, and with customers who are really interested again in keeping their dollars here and moving in our community.
All right. Let me ask another question about funding. So you guys have been prodigious fundraisers from both state and philanthropic sources. Are there any income generating programs that have worked well for you folks?
Yeah, I mean, I think in the IBA community, right, we're always open to other suggestions and ideas, because I think this is ever an issue for all of us, especially when one of your main revenue generators is a membership entity, right? You want to keep that as consistent as possible and growing if you're able. And so, yeah, we have other revenue streams, including grants, some foundations, other things like that, that help us keep this body of work moving. We have monetized a few of our programs. I will say they are not always self-sustaining pieces. They often help us in enabling other opportunities for funding. So we might create like a marketing initiative that can be a monetized opportunity, but we're also able to use that opportunity as an amendee in one of our sponsorship benefits so that we can then bring on other businesses in larger sponsor agreements or contracts. So an example of that might be, you know, whether it's an advertising pipeline, whether it's a social media initiative, we can build those pieces into some of our sponsoring entities that help us then create regular annual agreements with larger entities like banks, like our larger restaurant conglomerates here, etc. So those have been a real aid to us, and something that we're eager to try, which will be a new opportunity for us underneath the Good for Michigan program specifically. Now that my colleague Alice Jasper is a certified, she's certified with the BIA tool through B-Lab, we're excited to really launch more of a paid coaching model through that. We often have a ton of businesses that are excited about either impact measurement, or maybe they're excited to move through to the B Corp status. And this is now an opportunity for us to really build capacity alongside that, and also build out more of a programmatic piece that could bring in some additional revenue for us. The other piece that has been really helpful for us over time, specific to the Good for Michigan program, is really building out this cohort community practice model. It's allowed us to identify either universities, economic partners, et cetera, that can help us either underwrite curriculum development for those businesses that want to go through their impact measuring platform, and then connect them to deeper resources so that those businesses can then take advantage of technical assistance on the latter end. So this has helped us build up contracts for businesses, you know, again, about 15 usually at a time, that will go through that platform. That winds up becoming a pretty significant revenue generator for us over the course of the year. So not all of them become self-sustaining pieces. Some of them lend toward other opportunities for us to build contracts that bring in additional dollars. And particularly the cohort program has allowed us to bring in a pretty significant new revenue stream as we build up curriculum and bring people through collectively.
Right. Okay. Other questions for Kathleen, or comments about what she's had to say? Tom, did we really exhaust your list of questions? You are muted now, uncharacteristically muted.
Oh, I beg your pardon. I was saying maybe I'm more interested because I'm also here in Michigan. But Kathleen, are you already working with the group in Kent County and Grand Rapids that's trying to develop community solar possibilities in your area?
Not specifically, no.
Okay, we can make that connection after today because they're trying to do some very interesting and closely related activities for the greater Grand Rapids area. And you just talked about interfacing with other organizations. I wondered how the extent to which you're integrated with the Michigan Small Business Administration out of Grand Valley State University and their different services that they can provide.
Yeah, we've been partnering with them throughout the years. Sometimes more closely, sometimes a little more loosely as a referral-based partner. But there have been times when we've gone through some joint curriculum together. So we love what they're doing, and particularly also being seated with students. There's a lot of opportunity for students to get involved with businesses who are actively working through their programs. And so our businesses have found that as an immense value over time.
Okay. So let's move into the last part of what we do. And this is where I just ask around if people have things that they want to share about what's going on the ground in their own communities. Can be brags, can be events, can be concerns, whatever. But I'll just say one thing from my community that I'm curious about is that I actually, because I have these 30 plus students every year in January who need to do a BIA assessment on companies, Kathleen, if you have extra company that are looking for hand-holding to go through the assessment, I've got talented MBAs who can help you, and same for everyone else on the call. So Devin, nice to see you. Anything you want to share from the world of crowdfunding?
Well, golly, it's great to be here. Thanks for giving me a sec to say hi. We are excited to be doing our first local event with the Super Crowd in Utah. That's scheduled for October 23rd. We're trying to lock down a date for Super Crowd Baltimore in November. I think that's going to be November 30th, and then we're hoping to pull off our third event somewhere in Northern California in December. So we're working on those. So I hope to see you guys at one of those soon, or another one soon. We'll keep doing these around the country.
That's great. Thank you. Gwen, anything you want to share?
No, this was great. We are just a little rural community of about 15,000 and serve our region here as a hub. And our downtown district's always local business, always an item that we try to keep before us. And today was so helpful in opening our eyes to some other, like, say, tools and opportunities that we might be able to network together and use. So this was exciting. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Gwen. I've been to your community, beautiful place. DW Farrell, anything you want to share?
Thanks for asking. And Kathleen, we had a last meeting in February 2021. So that was pandemic world. Wow. So much has changed. Yeah, I'm not going to add anything dramatic, but I really appreciate how People First economy has kind of grown and changed over the years. I do have a question about how kind of the bigger brand and campaigns kind of serve the organization, whether you found that it's better to say, here's our campaign and this gives people focus, and then here's our organization. And I know you guys have taken a campaign and turned it into the organization. So I'd love some thoughts on that, but I don't want to take up too much time.
If everyone's given updates, sure, I'm happy to address that a bit. I think for us, one of the bigger forays into that was lack of event space. In the pandemic, right, for obvious reasons. And so as we didn't have the opportunity to bring as many community members through a space together to get in front of businesses and have them interface, this was a really natural way for us to keep the momentum of that, give people, exactly as you mentioned, like a focus area, specific topic to prowl around. We're learning from that every year. So we've shifted how we either do that around our food programming or with banks or any number of pieces. Every year looks different. I think for us, we're finding the most momentum with Indie Month and our holiday campaign. Our first Move Your Money month was really splashy, and people significantly let us know, wow, I'd never thought about this before. So grateful for some information. Now we're trying to continue to move that into some actionable steps here. So that has been really valuable. As we've come up on some of this larger organizational rebranding pieces, I do think that we have worked within that tension of how do we center a new name, our continued mission in these 3 areas, and just build that brand recognition alongside having some of our active campaigns. So no specific answers to that, but agreement that it is something we're continuing to work on. But we do find those tools to be a great one, not only for additional revenue into the organization, for consumers rallying around specific topic areas, and then also a pretty fruitful opportunity for us to give just a lot of promotion to businesses within those category areas. So it winds up being a big benefit and value to those businesses.
Great. And I'll go ahead and share a little update on our end. So I'm with Localite. And before Localite, for about 10 years, I ran a nonprofit called Localism. And we did a pilot program before the pandemic with about 150 businesses, and really wanted to shift as much money as possible to them with a rewards program that functioned more like a local currency. We shifted to $500,000 over 18 months and said, we actually have a sustainable model here. We registered as a public benefit corp, similar to a B Corp. Let's see, signed with a couple counties, and we have one in Arizona, and CDFI partners and local bank partners, such as one in DC with an IBA there that has gone through some changes. And then Long Beach signed an agreement with us to have 800 businesses participate. And what's cool is we have a circular currency platform. Customers can just shop at 800 businesses. They earn local cash that they can only spend at the participating businesses. It turns those businesses into cash magnets. And in our partnership with the city, we say, who do you want us to invite? And the city of Long Beach said, we want majority Black-owned, Asian-owned, Hispanic-owned businesses to be invited, turn them into cash magnets. So it's been great, and we keep very busy, but we're kind of more on the tech side of how to really recirculate local dollars. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Tom, anything to report from the world of community solar?
Well, yeah, in Michigan, we have our legislative day of action next week on the 26th, and there are probably 100 or 200 people who work on climate, energy, local employment, all these different groups, the League of Women's Voters, all coming together, and we're going to have a multifaceted visit with state legislators to talk with them about the bills that are in front of them now and try to encourage some significant action. I know we've had some of these bills in front of the legislature now more than 10 years, sitting there, never getting even as much as a hearing. But now there's a moment here where we have a Democratic-led government on all sides, and looks like we might get some actual forward motion. One of my hobbies is trying to figure out how do we do community solar without utility company participation, because the utilities have been so not helpful, let's say, in making this move forward. So, you know, I've tried to focus on other ideas about how to make it work without the utility, but we might also very soon now have a broad opening to make it much more available statewide and let people participate in a meaningful way.
All right, thank you. So we've reached the end of our time. I'll just say we will convene roughly in a month. We're still working on the exact date, and we will hear about the local first activities in Greater Boston from Lori Hamill, who is always fun to listen to. So Kathleen, thank you very much for a really wonderful presentation and all of these provocative answers to our questions. Thanks to the rest of you for coming, and we'll see you in a month.
Thanks all.
Thanks, everyone.